Great. In fact, I once met the Fijian Prime Minister uh, who was speaking to the audience in COP, and he said that, look, for most of you, seats provide an area for talking. You know, you talk about small island development countries as a group. But for us, global warming means life and death. Every morning we get up, we found the island having sunk 1 more inch further down onto the sea. And his speech was very poignant. In fact, he went to say that for the total COVID management, the world spent a few $1 trillion. But to save the small island countries from global warming, not enough expenditure is being made. And that's really a question of morality and ethics for the entire mankind. Now next one.
चेंज कर रहा हूँ कैमरा चेंज कर रहा हूँ.
Thank you very much, sir. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Swati Dsouza. I represent the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis as well as the IEA. So, a little about myself, as sir is requested. I work in the fossil fuels transition space, primarily transitions from coal, oil, gas, which has been my background, to now renewable energy. So IFA is a very unique institution. Given that I represent the think tank space, let me speak about it more from that perspective given our topic. There is a lot of conversation that's happening within the industry as well as the government, who are our key stakeholders, on energy transition as a topic and the pathways to achieve transition, including the pathways to achieve net zero. Finance has become a really key component in this conversation. IFA is a very unique think tank. It is one of the very few think tanks in India that focus primarily on energy finance and access to energy finance in different sectors. We started off with the power sector. Now we end up working both in transport as well as supply chains as a whole. The IEA has put a lot of emphasis on finance in the last 2 years, particularly after Glasgow, where there was a lot of push towards finance, particularly for the global south. In fact, just 2 months back, we released a report in coordination with the IFC, which has looked at where finance is flowing. A lot of it is flowing to G7 plus China. Not enough is flowing to India and the larger global south, which was also the topic of conversation in the G20 that went recently. I'll stop here, sir, if that's okay.
I mean, just for clarity, you know, you are the energy analyst in IEEFA, and you are also in their lead in IEA. How both are these related?
So, sir, both of them work together in the area of finance.
Okay.
And because as think tanks, our job is to inform different stakeholders. This could include governments, this could include investors, this could include just the people as a whole. So we do a lot of work together.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yes, Sensor.
Thank you.
Take more time.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dibirath. I look after the corporate banking business for North India for HSBC. I am also the India lead for sustainable finance for the bank. So to provide a broad background of the canvas that HSBC has set for itself in terms of sustainable financing. In October 2020, in the global annual general meeting, HSBC made a commitment that by 2030, we will invest up to $1 trillion in terms of partnering our clients in their net zero journey. So that's the broad global footprint that we have set for ourselves. And we are working towards that. And in terms of taking one of the questions that is likely to come, that how much have we spent so far? $186 billion have been spent so far globally. Other than this, there are also certain other initiatives which we are doing in partnerships with certain leading organizations. So for example, we are working with the Bill Gates Climate Tech Investment Fund, and there is a fund called Breakthrough Energy Catalyst, where we intend to invest up to $100 million, and this is just a start. Similarly, in 2021, along with Temasek, Singapore, we set up another fund which will be dedicated solely for debt financing of infrastructure in the South Asia region. And the primary objective of that fund is to reduce the coal assets or help actors reduce coal assets. In the mutual fund space as well, globally, we have partnered with Pollination, and the idea of that fund is to get into the voluntary carbon credit markets. And essentially the fund invests into several nature-based projects, and instead of giving financial returns to its investors, it gives carbon credits. So that's also another initiative, and it has far-reaching consequences even for India as we progress down the green credit program. Coming specifically to the Indian context, without a doubt I can say that we are the largest sustainable financing bank in India as far as proportion of our balance sheet deployed towards sustainable financing. So 14% of our balance sheet in India is completely now dedicated and disbursed towards sustainable financing. The path is the same here, that we are working with our clients in terms of their transition journey. For India, obviously we have started with certain low-hanging fruits like the renewable sector, energy efficient sector, and also greening of the logistics sector and certain other initiatives. And we plan to continue to step up our activity around this. We are also doing significant amount of work on policy advocacy. We are also partnering a lot of international institutions working in this space like Bloomberg, like World Economic Forum, and various other industry bodies in terms of taking the theme to the wider audience.
Good. That's brilliant. I just had one question. I mean, supplementary before you go for that. When you're talking about sustainable financing, and you look at the net zero scenario, for example, energy sector in terms of global warming contribution plays 73.2% growth. If global greenhouse gases come from energy sector, 18.4% comes from agriculture, forestry, and land use. We get around 3.2% from waste sector and 5.2% from other industries. So when we planning for climate finance or net zero finance in the bank and billions of dollars that you earmark, do you divide among these sectors, that is for energy, agriculture, forestry, land use, waste and industry, or how do you decide the sectoral priorities?
Absolutely. So we work with the concept of firstly reducing our financed emission portfolio.
Okay.
Because as a bank as old as we are, we have large legacy portfolios of financed emissions. So progressively we want to reduce, which means that our exposure to the sectors which are contributing to large amount of greenhouse gas will reduce. But that's just one side of the story. The other side of the story is that if you see most of the large corporates in this space globally and in India are also having a parallel path where they are charting their own net zero journey. So they are also coming up with increasingly large portfolios of green assets. So we are going to gradually shift our exposure in terms of reduction to the greenhouse gas emitting sectors and reposition it more towards the greening sector. So I'll give you a very good example. There is a global corporation, without taking its name, which had a very large thermal portfolio as well as a green portfolio in India. How we assisted them is that we assisted them in selling off their coal assets completely to some investor who actually was interested in that. So they got rid of that portfolio completely. And we significantly increased our exposure to them in terms of the renewable financing that they needed. So this is clearly the theme of the story that we are trying to play out, that we will increasingly aspire to have more and more portion of our capital deployed towards the green, and in turn will reduce the brown or the black.
Very good. And Swati, if I take the same question to you, now, the energy, agriculture, forestry, land use, waste and other industries, how do you allocate your studies in finance? The financial analysis you make for all these sectors, or you make mostly for energy?
So the thing is, we follow a lot of what is happening both nationally as well as globally. So if we look at the policy trajectory, and you have been one of the proponents of it, the last decade was all about the power sector. And trying to decarbonize the power sector, and which is where a lot of our analysis was focused on, because yes, the market knows that renewables today is cheaper than coal, but in 2016, in 2015, the perception was that it is not. While it could have been, the perception was it was not. And therefore it was necessary to delve into that part. Plus, in terms of forecasting and analysis, a lot of our studies had to show that eventually we will reach a point where not only will renewables be cheaper, renewables plus battery will also be cheaper. Now this was about the decade till about 2020. This decade, as even the UN Secretary General talks about, is about decade of action, and there has been increasing focus. It's called hard to abate. I would not classify them as hard to abate, but transport and industry are the conversations where a lot of focus is coming on in this decade. And the people want information. Folks sitting in India want to know what's happening globally. Folks sitting globally who want to invest in India want to know what are the pathways, how they can do it. And that's how, to be quite honest, is where we start focusing our studies going forward.
Good, thank you. In fact, IA has greatly appreciated India's efforts to connect homes with electricity. In fact, it says in the last 1 decade, in the history of mankind, no country had provided access to electricity for so many homes as India has done. And coming back to you, because you focus on Pacific Islands. Of course, the islands will have a different pattern, as you said, they have different challenges. So would you like to just highlight in the context of this diagram I showed, or talked about energy, agriculture, forestry, land use, western industry? How do you view them in the context of the small islands?
Yeah, it's interesting because when we talk about SIDS and going back to Swati's point about having an evidence-based approach, I think it's very difficult in the context of Pacific Island because we don't really have data to begin with. So we don't know how to do forecasting, we don't know how to go about coming to a conclusion which is going to be decisive and actionable. That's number one. And I think second is to the fact that what the damage has happened is irreversible. So we are looking at adaptation and resilience now. We're talking about how to migrate these communities who are living very close to the sea, who are relying on the sea, because basically Pacific Islanders get their food through the sea, they have been living by the sea, so it's all about their relationship with the water, and that's a very crucial one. And now they're forced to be migrated to countries like Australia and New Zealand, not only for economic opportunities, but also because they have no other choice. And our data shows that 65% of Marshall Islanders who have moved to Australia and New Zealand don't want to come back because they are scaring for their lives. So now Pacific Islanders are scared of the future, because the future means that their country is going to be wiped out. So when we talk about climate financing, I think a lot of focus in these island countries is about how to go about, how to protect these communities, how to give them a livelihood, and at the same time, how to bring change which is going to be sustainable for the long run. Because most of these islanders are living in extreme poverty. So as much as they want to think about global issues of COP28 and running to G20, they are worried about what's going to happen for their next meal. So I think that's why we need international collaboration. We need governments putting together the ecosystem where private players would like to enter, because I got to be honest with you, when we talk about Fiji Islands, they have been thinking to come up with blue bonds. The conversation has been going on for years together. But there's no private capital in Fiji. There are no angel investors, no venture capital, no private equity. So we're talking about real-time challenges. And I moved from Singapore to Suva, and I've seen the contrast, because we don't have the talent. People move to countries which have got better economic opportunities for them. There's no private capital. The governments are corrupted. So it's a double, triple whammy that we are dealing with all the time. So I think what we need is the international agenda to be right up there for SIDS, because these countries are not going to be around for too long. So if you really want to bring the financing, it has to be, coming up very soon and channelizing into resident communities. and making sure that people who really have this strong bonding with the water, with the sea, continues to be so, because it's part of their culture and it really matters to them to bring that legacy for the future generation. And we don't want Pacific Islanders to be scared of the future, which is just about wiping out.
Yes, great. In fact, before we go to the next round of discussion, I would like any one of you has any questions to the panelists, most welcome. Please identify yourself and don't be shy. Backbenchers, front benchers, anyone? Please, go ahead. There. Yeah, she's coming. And he's the only one with 2 questions. Yeah?
Hello. My question is to Dev. I'm Suchin Jain. I'm from my panel Clean Solar. With our technology, we double the power generation of solar plants, and that too without water. So this is an emerging technology, and we have already deployed it in, with MNCs, government, as well as residential. So as a climate finance organization, how do you see the finance could be flowing to the new emerging technologies that can add a lot of value and create impact?
The banker is a banker is a banker, so give a bank answer. So,
Firstly, apologies, I couldn't hear you very clearly, but I think I've got a question. So you're talking about how financing can play a role in terms of newer technologies that are emerging. It's a very apt question, and I can't claim that I have a magic answer to that, but this is something we're grappling every day. See, net zero or the transition journey is definitely going to be a function of emergence of new technology. And as nascent as some of these markets are, there will be a lot of competing technologies at any point in time. If you look at even the battery technology today, there are few competing technologies together. And which one will be a winner or which of the few will be a winner is very difficult to predict. And this therefore poses significant challenges to a financier from the debt side. So let me take an example of something we have done practically in India, just as an example. So most of you are aware that while for the conventional ICE engined automobiles or car financing as traditionally known, there is no dearth of financing available today from every financial institutions or NBFCs. The challenge has been clearly in the case of electric vehicles. So while we did see certain NBFCs doing good job, but the banking sector participation hasn't been quite wide. The key to the challenge is the fact that battery technology is new, and it is very difficult to decide the residual value simply due to the lack of a secondary trading value available for that asset. You do not know what is the second-hand value of that car. So what LTVs would you go with? So that's a question that has been before all of us. The simple way we have taken to attempt to solve it, and we have done a pilot which is just getting rolled out with Tata Motors. So, every bank has an unsecured product. Unsecured loans, and you do get calls from several call centers for unsecured loans on your Sunday siesta. But this unsecured product is very prolific. So we asked ourselves that if unsecured loans can be done for the wider audience, why can't an unsecured loan product be used to attempt to finance an EVs? Because typically the buyer or user profile of EVs, given the price at which these are available, are most likely creditworthy. And if they are creditworthy, it does not really make sense to anyway hypothecate the vehicle because you do not know the residual value of the vehicle. So what we have done is for employees of our corporate banking clients, so corporates who are banking with us on the institutional sides, so we generally know how creditworthy these corporates are, and therefore the employees of these corporates are also reasonably creditworthy. So we have rolled out a product where we will be doing 100% financing for these EVs, typically Nexon, without creating any hypothecation of the vehicle. And this is something that is getting rolled out as we speak, and we are finding good traction and good. Similarly, there will be a lot of technologies that for a bank to deal with is difficult. That is where the role of multilaterals or development financial institutions become important in terms of providing credit wraps. Because some amount of risk taking has to happen. Commercial banks are clearly not in a position to take those risks. you need to have some of these institutions take that risk. That is number one. The second part of it is the corporates who are actually experimenting with some of these new technologies. The assumption is that if they are so confident about some of these technologies, we would want to see some risk sharing by them. It could be in the form of a first loss default guarantee or some other mechanism which can be absolutely mutually discussed and agreed. But the clear way to break this problem is through risk participation. And I am sure that we are going to see several models emerge to tackle some of these that come through. For example, green hydrogen again is a very new subject. Apart from the commercial price, viability, etc., there are technology issues as well. So that's how people will have to break the barriers and go forward, and that's what we are also trying to do now.
Thank you. Friends, we have a board here which reads in red color. Time is up. So the Honorable Minister is coming. They have to set the stage. So thank you all, my co-panelists and friends, to you for having listened to us, and to ET for having organized all this. Thank you once again. Sorry you couldn't take more questions because the board is red here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.